Good evening, my friends. Thank you very much for being here with me. I'm reading Break the Cycle, the lesson 1.28. Do you have trust disorders? Reduce excessive trust and distrust. So, skipping the first paragraph, this article provides a trust status check, Q&A about trusting and distrusting, options for identifying and reducing trust disorders, and options for improving self-trust. And trustworthiness. This article assumes you are familiar with the intro, this non-profit website, and the premises underlining it, perspective on human personalities, grown wooden children, and the overview of the wounds and awareness. Well, basically the previous 27 little lessons of lesson 1, okay? Status check. With your true self guiding you, get undistracted and meditate on this statement. T, true, F, false, question mark, I'm not sure, or it depends on what. I know that all I need to know about trust now. That's false. I can clearly define trust and explain it where it comes from. I can name at least 5 things I need to trust about myself now. I trust myself to handle most situations well enough now. Awareness of my trust in myself, in other key people, and higher power is usually a high priority to me. I solidly trust that the world is a safe enough place. I was encouraged to trust my competence, perceptions, and decisions as a child. I steadily trust in a benign, responsive higher power now. I trust my mate, parents, siblings, and children enough at this time. I know how to handle personal betrayals effectively now. I have never betrayed any important adult or child. I am clear on my options for regaining lost trust now. I am comfortable enough talking about trust problems with other people now. I can describe clearly why reading this article. My true self is guiding my personality now. Pause and notice your thoughts and feelings now. Then review these basic ideas with open mind of a student. Don't forget that the link of this article is down below on the description box, okay? Trust 101. Get undistracted, meditate, and try answering these questions out loud. As though to a preteen. What are trust and distrust? What is betrayal? How does trust in someone or something originate? How is trust lost? How do most people react when it's lost, and how do I react? Which of my sub-selves determine who and what I trust or distrust? What are pseudo or blind trust? What do adults and kids need to trust in each other? What is trust disorder, psychological wound? How does excessive trust relate to another 5 psychological wounds? Does this excessive distrust affect spiritual health and growth? How does this distrust wound relate to false self-formation? What did you learn? Now compare your answers to these. Think of an adult you totally trust. Then identify someone you distrust. What is the difference between these people? I propose that trust is an automatic, semi-conscious judgment, attitude, and expectation adults and kids have about ourselves and others. Starting in infancy, it is powered by our primal need for safety. For example, our instinctive drive to avoid pain and injury. People who have consistently sound judgmental and who have never been betrayed, had their own trust broken, may not worry about trust. Do you know anyone that doesn't have been let down, lied to, misled, cheated, disillusioned, backstabbed, conned, used, manipulated, or betrayed by someone important to them? By God, by an organization? Would some adult or child say that you have done any of those to them? Complete trust say, I can absolutely count on someone or something to be an act or act in a certain way that affects my physical, emotional, and spiritual security. For example, I trust the sun will rise tomorrow again to warm and light my world, and there will again be oxygen enough for me all day. From our primal need for safety, our language includes many trust-related words like unreliable, confident, unfaithful, assurance, pledged, promise, untrustworthy, contract, reliable, reliance, vow, promise, uncertainty, doubt, unsure, betrayal, or cynical, skeptical, pessimism, dishonesty. Our laws promote trust in each other and organizations, partly by threatening significant pain to those who break legal or ethical promises. Trust in ourselves, each other, and the universe varies in degrees and scope. I trust you to make a delicious omelette, but do not always tell me the truth about your spending our money. I can trust myself to drive a car without crashing, but I do not always remember your birthday. Trust and distrust are ultimately a measure of faith about how we or another will behave in a predictable way. Paradox. I trust that I can't trust you about. Trust may be granted until it's broken, otherwise, it can only grow naturally. If conditions are right over significant time, like love, respect, interest, and bonding, trust cannot be requested, demanded, decreased, bought, or buttered. You should trust me. It's a be spontaneous paradox. One implication is if you and or an adult or child have lost trust in the other, it may not be possible to rebuild it well enough for both people. Time, motivation, and behaviors will tell. What is distrust? As we newborns experience significant discomforts, unmet needs, distrust begins to form. Paradoxically, distrust is a trusting that something or someone is unsafe. For example, that they will not satisfy current primary needs and or that they won't satisfy our needs in a way that feels good enough. Distrust inhibits human and spiritual intimacy by blocking us from revealing our true thoughts, feelings, and needs. Chronic suspicions and jealousy suggest a significant trust disorder. For example, false self-dominance in one or all people involved. For more detailed explanation of the origin of chronic excessive distrust, read this after you finish here. What is betrayal? Here it means expecting someone, including our roots of selves, to feel important needs and finding that they don't. Most agonizing betrayals, for example, parental neglect and marital affairs, are those which send the glaring public message, I don't care about you or your welfare. Shame-based wounded people are highly sensitive and reactive to perceived betrayals, or they have learned to be protectively indifferent, to numb and deny them because their childhoods were full of painful betrayals, neglect, and abandonment they didn't cause or couldn't understand or prevent. Where does trust come from? Please and try answering this question out loud. Then compare your idea with this premise. In interpersonal relationship, trust comes from needs plus direct experience, hopes, and assumptions. Needs, our earliest experience of distrust occurs in infancy. I'm gonna sneeze. Okay. We are entirely dependent on giant adults to know and feel our current physical and development needs. If they do not reliably and effectively, we grow worthless trust that they value us and want to help us feel safe and comfortable. If our needs are met erratically, harshly, or poorly, we grow worthless distrust about A. our own worth, B. the reliability and intentions of our caregivers, and C. the safety of the local and the whole universe. As we age, we slowly become more capable of filing many of our own needs, and we can become increasingly selective about which other people we trust or maintain safety and comfort. An inescapable challenge is whether we learn to trust our own abilities to fill our needs in different situations or not. Self-distrust. Hopes. Faith. Hope-based trust is faith in something without direct experiencing it. A primal example is hope for faith in afterlife, free of earthly suffering and reunion with God, ancestors, and beloved friends and heroes. Experience your trust also comes from repeated observations, never time. For example, in 22 years, Pat has never broken a promise to me. So, if trust is lost, we need to repeated experience versus verbal assurance to rebuild it. In some cases, we start our unsure or distrusting, doubtful, and or cynical. We may reverse that to some extent over time. It's based on accumulated experience. When we met, I was uneasy hearing about my future stepson had been recently caught shoplifting, but since our wedding, he has never done it again. Assumptions. Trust also comes from an observing that's normal in the world and from believing reliable sources of information. For example, Pastor looking would never lie to me. The male Curly will never read my personal mail. I trust my doctor to assess me accurately and prescribe the right thing. We also assume the reliableness of some things. I trust that Martha will never run for president, become an exotic dancer, or shave her head. Can you think of other sources of the trust faith you have in living and spiritual things and in nature? Who causes or blocks trust? This educational website is based on the premise that normal human personalities are composed of a group of subselves who behave chaotically to harmoniously. A corollary is that one of your subselves is naturally talented leader. Your true self, capital S, is less talented subselves. Distrust yourself, they usurp personality leadership that can be called your false self because they unexpectedly direct your thoughts, perceptions, needs, and behaviors. From this perspective, the question above becomes: do all your active subselves solidly trust your self judgment and ability, self trust? And if your ruling subselves distrust another person or the universe, in some ways, which subselves are distrustful and why? Growing up, maturing, and reducing psychological wounds recovery are trust building processes. They hinge on all your subselves accumulating experience that they can rely on. The wisdom and judgment of yourself and higher power, and the ability of your team of subselves to keep you happy and safe enough day by day. My experience as an inner family therapist since 1992 is that each of your subselves has its own self level of trust, low to high. In yourself, your inner family, your mate, if any, key adults and kids, and in a higher power. Some subselves trust more than others. That promotes normal or excessive confusion, ambivalence, doubt, anxiety, and uncertainty. Implication: to build trust in your own judgment and in your ability to handle any situation. Self confidence: yourself will need to identify which of your subselves are distrustful and work with them respectfully to change their beliefs. Another implication: rebuilding lost trust is another person requires you to be steadily guided by your true self. Identify your distrustful subselves and learn what they need. Assert those needs to appropriate people effectively, and then the other person must want to change and feel your needs and their needs equally. Until the other person's true self guides them, the last requisite is unlikely. That means that it may not be possible to regain lost trust. Note that your subself are saying now. For example, notice your thoughts, images, and feelings. What are pseudo and blind trust? Have you ever experienced a double message, I love you, you disgust me, from someone? These are common signs that different subselves in us have different opinions, motives, perceptions, and needs. Another common symptom is making superficial versus core attitudes, changes like dieting, earnesty, and then regaining the lost weight over and over again. In the same way, some of your subselves may trust yourself and certain other kids and adults, some don't. That causes pseudo trust. Declaring or acting like you trust, but your actions imply you don't. A double message. For instance, you may say sincerely, I trust that you love and need me, and suffer episodes of feeling unloved and unimportant. A widespread psychological wound is excessive reliability distortions like denying. Pseudo trust results from a well intentioned subself protecting you from the pain of admitting you can't trust someone or something, or that you are unable to trust wisely in general, self distrust. A similar phenomenon is blind faith or trust, rigidly avoiding or ignoring facts and experiences that clearly say to other knowledgeable people your trust is misplaced. Blind faith is an example of rigid black-white thinking, which often indicates false self-dominance. Do you know anyone who denies that a loved one is addicted, emotionally unstable, sick, self-destructive, or criminal? Are there any fanatics or zealots among the people you know? How about eternal optimists? Such cases imply that there are ruling subselves who cannot tolerate the pain of facing that trust, security in some precious person, perception, or concept is not justified. Restated, it is possible to trust too much. Recall that one of the 5 symptoms of early childhood trauma is trust distortions. For example, not trusting safe people or reliable higher power, or repeatedly trusting unsafe people and getting betrayed. Either way, the primarily underlying problem is unawareness or a disabled true self and these psychological wounds. How is trust lost? Recall one of the 5 symptoms of early childhood trauma is trust distortions. How is trust lost? Can you recall significant trust in a person, group, or belief and losing it? Do you remember how that happened? The most memorable trust losses are sudden traumatic discoveries, betrayals, like learning that a mate is having an affair, using drugs covertly as a terminal illness, or is molesting a child. These are shattered expectations which may or may not have been justified originally. This trust can also grow from unremarkable events that accumulate over time. We grow hunches or feelings that something is not right here, without clear or dramatic evidence. This can come from a trusted person needs to hide deceitful or shameful behaviors, and or our need to hide from the painful reality that the other person is not who we thought they were, or need them to be. This trust can also come from significant social or environmental events that we never experienced or expected. I have hundreds of couples therapy cases where one or both partners had gradually lost the trust in another and or lost faith in their relationship could survive. Do you know anyone like that? How do we react when trust is lost? Each of us develops a strategy for reacting to lost trust. Do you know what your strategy is? See if you recognize among these. Avoiding full trust in the first place and pretending it isn't true. Distrusting your own perceptions and emotions and your ability to trust appropriately. Generalizing all females, males, gypsies, etc. are basically conniving, selfish, and deceitful. Minimizing, denying, pretending, or explaining lost trust without much feeling. Related false self strategies and emotional numbing and self-comforting via addiction. Blaming ourselves and not seeing a partner half is losing faith. If I had been a better sexual partner, Jamie wouldn't have had the affair. This can't manifest as feeling guilty or ashamed for choosing an unworthy partner and for losing faith in them. Our strategy may be blaming someone else for our loss of trust and denying our half of the action. Your sexual affair proves you are morally weak, corrupt person. This may be embellished by choosing a comfort, martyr, or victim role. Acknowledging lost trust and not doing anything about it. For example, ignoring the needs that distrust creates and or avoiding scary confrontations and other choices requires to fill these needs. Marian, if you forget to fill the tank one more time, I'm going to ask you for your ignition key. A major case is this not grieving our loss. I have got too much to do to be sad these days, or denying or not seeking patterns in the trust we form or lose over time. It's too weird. I've picked these dishonest partners in a row. Am I under some curse or spell? Adopting and denying pseudo or blind trust rather than admitting an agonizing or terrifying loss of faith. Getting depressed, calling healthy grief over lost trust, depression, and perhaps seeking medication or therapy for it. Another strategy is anxiety attacks, focusing on the effects of lost trust, less security, rather than the causes and taking responsibility for healthy reactions. Admitting lost trust without blame. B. Learning from it. C. Assessing current needs. And D. Acting responsibly and compassionately to fill them. Carlos is terribly wounded and in denial. He wants to tell me the truth, but his false self often won't let him. He's not in a place yet to recognize and change that I can't control that. And I need a partner I can trust. Some combination of these and or other strategies. I'm sorry. What do you notice about these responses to lost trust? What I notice is that only the last one is holistic, healthy, and the others simply imply a disabled true self. Recall the core benefits of trust is the feeling safe from pain, injury, loss, and overwhelm. Your true self and inner advisors are competent to adapt to lost trust and rebuild securities if you ever Other sub-selves will trust them to do that. What do adults and kids need to trust? See how you feel about this summary. Point by point, we each need to trust our own judgment, for example, our true self, our competencies, our intrinsic human worth, and our perceptions. Agree, disagree, it depends on. That there is a purpose on meaning of our life, despite periods of doubt. That adults and kids are basically good and that life on earth is usually safe enough. And we each need to trust that other people want to consistently keep their promises to us, respect our needs, opinions, habits, and beliefs equally their own, even if we conflict. Affirm and encourage us in troubled times versus ignoring, criticizing, or abandoning us. Tell us the truth, to tell us they don't feel safe doing so and why. Accept us for who we are rather than how we look, sound, and behave. Respect versus agree with our choice of friends, activities, and spirituality. Be honest with themselves and us in important matters. And we each need to trust other people to want to understand and empathize with us, with their limits. Confront us directly when they need to in a loving, empathetic versus shaming, insensitive way. Respectful our limits and boundaries, including times we need privacy and solitude. Listen to us empathetically versus fix us, solve my problems when we need to vent. Seek promises when we differ our important matters. Appreciate our personal talents and limitations. Be respectfully direct and assertive with us rather than aggressive or submissive. Balance our flaws and mistakes with the good in us and your own trust items. This summary, suggestive not comprehensive, can change or add any items to make this more complete and relevant for you. Note that this summary omits trust items related to mates, kids, relatives, friends, possessions, nature, governments, and assets, especially social roles and relationships, like mate, parent-child, and employee-employer, marriage, unique trust items. Each item above is a change of betrayal, broken trust, or for relationship satisfaction and security. Note the key phrase I want to if someone provides trust like these out of duty, guilt, shame, or fear instead of genuinely wanting to. Would that fill your needs or trust? An important implication of this inventory is I don't trust you can have many meanings. One is I don't feel safe with you. Another is I don't trust you to value me or my needs equally with your own. Excellent point. With the above background, we can explore that what is trust disorder, psychological wound. Typical psychologically wounded adults and kids may distrust, second guess, and doubt their own perceptions, wisdom, conclusions, ideas, feelings, intuitions, decisions, and they may overtrust other people who then disappoint and betray them. I have never learned on they undertrust reliable, trustworthy people, and they distrust that benign versus jealous and worthful higher power affects their lives, guarding and guiding them towards their long-term good and life purpose. An awareness of minimizing or denying trust disorders and other psychological wounds promotes stress and degrades personal wealth, growth, and key relationships. Psychological wounded parents often unintentionally pass wounds on their kids. Thus, trust disorders and other wounds are, in an individual, stressor and a family problem. Self-motivated progress at lesson 1 can reduce psychological wounds over time. How do you trust disorders related to other 5 psychological wounds? They relate in many ways: early childhood betrayals, caregivers, neglect, and resulting distrusts, promote excessive fears. I am not safe here. Reality distortions. I know you love me, though you are never around. And core shame. You let me down again. I must be worthless. Extreme infantile distrust, shame, and fear may block the normal instinct to form healthy bonds with key people. Clinicians call this scripting condition reactive attachment disorder. This can mean that excessive distrust, shame, and fearful wounded people can't feel, express, and receive genuine empathy and love. Common symptoms of this wound are never marrying, a series of broken relationships, cyclical approach, avoid relationships, difficulty empathizing and sharing intimacy, coldness, chronic detachment, and codependence and other addictions. Significant fear promotes distrust and vice versa. So working intentionally to reduce worries and fears is likely to automatically improve your range of realistic trusts. Trust disorders can affect spiritual health and growth. Try saying your definition of spiritual health out loud and then compare it to these ideas. Spiritual refers to a person's attitude about and belief in unseen entities that affect life on earth, like God, angels, and demons. Sociologists, well, actually, these are behavioral patterns, okay? And they happen because people have the 6 psychological wounds, they have the holes in the soul, and they are easy targets, okay? And they are easy to be manipulated by their ego because they are not aligned on their chakras, okay? Sociologists report that people of every age and culture evolve a framework of spiritual beliefs to help them explain natural phenomena, including birth, pain, and death. It's also very important that you understand how quantum physics work. Okay? Health refers to how close to optimal functioning of an adult or child is at any time. So spiritual health can mean how well a person's attitudes and beliefs about spirits consistently promote personal, family, and social contentment, serenity, and satisfying relationships. It can also mean how well a person's spiritual needs are met. Do you believe that spiritual health can affect physical health and longevity? Of course. We live in a spiritual warfare. I mean, the person that hasn't realized that they don't live in this reality, they live in the distorted reality. Okay? Spiritual growth acknowledges that as people age, they change their beliefs about spiritual realities. Growth implies that there can be progress towards an optimal set of spiritual beliefs in someone's opinion. Holistic health includes steadily spiritual faith, trust there is a loving versus jealous and punitive higher power who knows and cares about our lives. Hear us in calm times and crisis and offers wide guidance and resources like strength, resilience, inspiration, and hope to help us adapt and prosper. Typical young kids deprived of healthy spiritual guidance and who are taught to fear God, Satan, demons, sin, and eternal damnation are prone to become fear-based, believing that the world is a dangerous place. Reducing psychological wounds promotes and benefits from growing trust in a stable, nurturing, responsive higher self and higher power. This growth helps to significantly increase daily serenity and reduce major fear, guilt, shame, and reality distortions over time. How can you tell if you or someone has a trust disorder? Symptoms of excessive trust and distrust. To access yourself or someone else for significant trust or trust disorder, look for behaviors like those below. Keep in mind that the real question is whether your true self is disabled too often. Choose a time or place where you are undistracted and your true self is guiding you. Then check each behavioral trait and that applies to you. Use this checklist now and as you reduce your wounds over time. 1. Chronic ambivalence and or constantly second guessing, doubting your own perceptions, conclusions and decisions and feeling I can't help it. Self-distrust. 2. Often socially unassertive, shy and timid, having little self-confidence and a symptom of excessive shame. 3. Being described by others as over-controlling, manipulative, rigid, over-detailed, over-cautious, wordy-word, and or too picky, distracting others and yourself. 4. Significant chronic periods of anxiety, distracting the world, God, and yourself. This is also a common symptom of excessive fear. 5. Constantly over-researching decisions and or consulting others too much, distrust or rarely researching important decisions and making them impulsively over-trusting. 6. Frequently ambivalence and sending double messages and difficulty making firm decisions and or acting on them. 7. Excessive reliance on people's advices versus trusting your own judgment. 8. Excessive suspicions, possessiveness, and or wording. 9. Habitually over-analyzing what other people really mean, think, or feel, socially and self-distrust. 10. Usually being intellectual or in your head, distrusting the safety of feeling and or expressing your emotions. 11. Risking personal harm and or exploitation by telling personal information to strangers, overtrusting. More common symptoms of the excessive distrust wound. 12. Avoiding conflicts or fear and of blowing up, lashing out, or losing control, self-distrust. 13. A history of significant betrayals, lies, and unbroken promises by trusted others, overtrusting. 14. An inability to exchange and sustain true emotional physical intimacy. For example, inability to risk or tolerate disapproval, rejection, and ultimate abandonment by key people despite sincere assurances. Excessive anxiety about revealing personal dreams, hopes, fears, emotions, values, and thoughts. Variation, inability using vague language and avoiding clear, direct answers to questions. 16. Compulsively mind reading others, assuming I know what you are really thinking, feeling, wanting. Also a symptom of fear of the unknown. 17. Habitual inability to accept merited compliments, self-trust, and a symptom of excessive shame. 18. A history of avoidances and procrastination despite repeated painful consequences. Reluctance to try new situation, ideas, experiences, and places. For example, disinterest in travel. 20. Having a reputation as an unusual, conservative, and being uncomfortable with risks and major change, self-distrust, and fear of the unknown. 21. Chronically or rarely saying no to new situations or invitations, distrust or overtrusting. 22. Being especially cynical and skeptical and pessimistic may indicate active self-distrusting that the world and or most people are safe and good enough. 23. Not distinguish between religion and spirituality and scorning religion and or faith in a higher power as a weakness and or crutch, spiritual distrust. 24. Constantly needing to explain and justify personal behaviors, viewpoints, and preferences when others don't need to hear that. Distrust other people's acceptance. 25. Rarely being firm and assertive or asserting timidly with significant guilt and anxiety and backing down easily, self-distrust, and excessive shame. There are other behavioral symptoms or significant trust disorders. They are illustrative. The more of these symptoms someone has, the higher the odds that are psychological wounded versus bad or sick. If you are assessing yourself and are controlled by a false self, you are apt to minimize or deny some of these symptoms. Guard against this by having someone who knows and supports your reviews these symptoms with you and validate or improve your assessment. If you are too distrustful or trust too easily, too often, what can you do? Recovery options. Trust disorders are one of the 5 major symptoms that your true self is disabled. Yourself and other manager sub-selves are innately able to decide wisely whom and what to trust, so your primarily recovery goals are to use part words to recover which of your guardian and young sub-selves distrust and disable your true self. Then patiently grow their trust in your self-judgment and leadership. And as you do this, learn how to identify adults and kids who may disapprove and betray you, and from whom and to form realistic expectations of them. Let's look at the first 2 of these goals. Build trust in yourself. Common innate children and guardian sub-selves that cause naive trust and excessive trust are scared children, the cynic, pessimistic, the catastrophizer, the shamed child, the skeptic, the doubter, the judge, the bigot, naive, innocent child, people pleaser, and worry. Confirm that this and any other sub-self distrust yourself by interviewing them one at a time. Then work with each distrustful inner child and patiently build their guardian sub-selves. Trust in your manager's abilities to keep your kids safe. This part work strategy gives more detail. Example. If you haven't recently tried this safe, interesting experience of having an inner dialogue with one of your sub-selves, then return here. Here is how to dialogue with your diligent warrior, guardian sub-self might go. Get physically comfortable and undistracted for 15 to 20 minutes for this. Imagine being in a safe, comfortable, undistracted setting and breathe easily from your belly. When you feel ready, tell all your sub-selves, for example, think or say out loud that you are going to talk about with your protective warrior or whatever you call him or her sub-self. Ask if anyone needs to say anything before you do, and notice that any thoughts or feelings that occur. If another sub-self is nervous or scared about your dialogue, focus on calming and reassuring that part first. When everyone is quiet, relax, breathe, and ask your warrior to join you in this safe internal place. Be open to anything, an image, thought, a memory, a bodily sensation, and none of these. Whatever you get, focus on it and ask it, your warrior, if it is one who is giving your image, memory, or feeling sensation, and the trust of the first response you get. If you get a yes, thought, or feeling, then have a dialogue like this. Self, will you talk with me for or a little while? Be prepared for. No. Warrior, why? Self, I would like to ask you a few questions and get to know you better. Is that okay? Warrior, I guess so. Self, is there a name you would like to be known by? Warrior, I'm Shaz. Thank you, Shaz. How old are you? I'm 24. And can you tell me what is your job now? I have to keep you safe. That's really important. Can you tell me who you are protecting? You, the others. Okay. Can you help me know what you're protecting us from? From getting hurt. That's pretty obvious, isn't it? And what kind of hurtful things are you looking for? A big one is getting other people upset with us. We don't want that. And how do you protect us? I watch all the time. If something bad might happen, I get to think hard about that. I see. And Chess, how do you like this job? Well, I get pretty tired, you know. I can't let up, even when you are sleeping. Have you ever thought that about asking for help to do this job? Ask who? There isn't anyone except that jerk who keeps screaming, "Oh my God, we are doomed." He always overdoes it, referring to the catastrophizing sub-self. So he is no help. Do you know who I am and what I do? Yeah, aren't you supposed to keep everyone under control? Uh-huh. That's one part of my job. I'm responsible for making decisions that will keep us safe and healthy. Well, how come you keep getting into all these jams then? Partially because we, sub-selves, aren't acting like that, like a team yet. Have you ever been part of a team that worked really well? No, I'm used to working alone. Typical dialogues can go in several directions from here. After making sure the sub-self A understands that he or she is part of a multi-talented team and B, your sub-self is a team leader, you eventually want to ask something like, "So Chaz, how would you feel about letting me work with you to keep us all safe? Let me take responsibility for keeping us safe enough, and you advise me if you think I'm missing something, okay?" When sub-selves hear this question, they often get scared they are going to lose their job, importance, and purpose. In this dialogue, another one explained that will never happen. Ask them to try out being advisor for a trial period of time. Will you try trusting me to keep us safe? Expect resistance and patiently keep asking you until you get yes. Over time, have dialogues like this with each distrustful guardian and young sub-self, and find ways to introduce them to each other to grow a sense of teamwork and group pride over time. Option: dialogue with several sub-selves at once. Ultimately, you yourself can hold council meetings with all your sub-selves to motivate, guide, problem solve, and appreciate them. As a whole, sub-self discover yourself and higher power really do keep you safe. That trust grows and resistance shrinks. As that evolves, your ability to trust your own perceptions and judgment. Self-confidence grows. So does your ability to discern the untrustworthy people and situations for harmful ones. Does this sound believable to you? Try it. The article in Lesson 1, Part 3 provides more details on working with your sub-selves. Each of us has a unique roster of sub-selves and a unique history. So this internal trust-building work needs to be creative, not cookbook. Yourself and your creative one, and perhaps a veteran past work professional, will guide you to craft your own effective strategy and for reorganizing and restraining your sub-self and building your serenity and self-confidence trust. As you develop self-trust, confidence, and healthy pride, a related recovery goal is to reduce excessive trust and unreliable people. Perspective: typical grown wooden children, GWCs, are at risk of trusting too easily and being hurt, betrayed repeatedly because they don't know that a protective false self often disables their wise true self. They may be shame-based, and their people pleaser tries valiantly to protect their inner children from rejection, abandonment, and score by being super nice, for example, trusting even to strangers. They learn early that saying no caused conflict, anger, criticism, and rejection. And typical GWCs were never taught to identify, validate, and assert their rights and as worthy persons. And wooden people are drawn to each other, so the risks of unrealistic expectations, betrayals, and disappointments is high. If you have felt betrayed, let down, and disappointed too often by other people, especially childhood caregivers, typical extra wooden rejection goals include: learn to assess adults to kids and psychological wounds, false self-dominance, and develop guilt-free caution about trusting wooden people too soon. And intentionally grow your self-awareness and pay attention to intuition, hunches, and senses about who is trustworthy with what. Unintentional reduce denying. No, I wasn't betrayed. Minimizing, it's not a big deal. And over-analyzing. I was betrayed because. By retraining your magician sub-self to trust yourself, intuition, and judgment. Retrain your inner critic not to blame, shame yourself for major betrayals by others. It's my fault. I should never have trusted. And work to heal your shamed, abandoned, and scared inner kids. Connect them to loving supervision of your talented nurturer sub-self and bring them to life in the present if needed. This will help your people pleaser and other guardian sub-self relax. Help your pleaser, critic, and perfectionist sub-selves to moderate their extreme needs to please. Trust and reliable, deceitful, dishonest, and potentially harmful wounded people. And practice identify your key expectations in other adults' kids. See if their actions match their words. And learn to confront respectfully and praise where needed. Watch for chances to consciously affirm your own judgment about whom to trust with what. Evolve a respectful way of telling people you distrust. I don't trust you about this because that. Do this to inform, not to punish, guilt trip, manipulate, or shame. Be open to selecting a veteran coach you trust to help you to achieve and maintain these goals. Ideally, she or will be practice on doing inner family therapy. Reality check. Think of an adult or child who has let me down, lied too often, and not kept important promises. To you and other people who care about. Now review the options above this with this person in mind and see what you are aware of. Before beginning your true recovery, typical fear-based wound-coding children may perceive that universe is unsafe and dangerous. They may reject the idea of a caring higher power and or have an exaggerated belief in evil spirits or negative energy. And an important way of build self-trust in their daily safety is to unintentionally develop trust, faith in a beginning higher power. As a veteran ex-atheist in recovery from psychological wounds for 29 years, I believe typical grown wounded children, GWCs, have too little or too much faith, trust in a beginning responsive, reliable higher power. Ultra-conservative, overzealous, and fundamentalist GWCs can be said to be codependent on their view of God and related religious beliefs and practices. They also tend to be very defensive about this, righteous, religious, and covertly judgmental of others, not like them, unbelievers, infidels, heretics, and sinners. My personal and professional experience over time, over 5 adult decades, has been that self-guided people usually have spontaneous versus dutiful or fearful balanced faith in a regular communion with a reliable, caring, responsible higher self. They learn to give overwhelming problems outside their control to this entity and trust it to provide safety and comfortable in unforeseen ways. My related experience is that very few survivors of childhood trauma, GWCs, can permanently reduce their residual wounds without stable faith in the beginning power to reliably help guide and protect them. Does that describe you now? Would others who know you agree? If you identify a GWC and have too much or too little faith, trust in a supportive higher power, you have several board options each day. Give steady high priority to improving your your self-trust above, and be open to gradual and sudden shifts on in your spiritual versus religion's beliefs trust, especially if when you hit true bottom. Stay clear on the important difference between religion and spirituality. Both offer personal and family benefits that can become a compulsive, addictive distraction from inner pain. Respectfully explore which of your sub-selves insist on rejecting, under-trusting, and over-trusting a higher power. Learn what they are trying to protect your other sub-selves from. Patiently improve their trust in your true self and other managers' sub-selves. Be open to and actively seek new relationships and experiences and include holistic, healthy, balanced spirituality versus salvation. Consider using a veteran spiritual counselor or advisor versus an astrologer, cut dealer, or shaman to explain your awareness. Choose regular periods of undisturbed, quiet reflection in nature, if possible. Option: explore the process of effects of personal journaling. Associate with people with stable spiritual faith by your definition. There are many liberal religions communities of such people. For example, Baha'i, Unitarian, Unity, Quakers, Society of Friends, Buddhists, and many others. Know that all varieties of the 12-step recovery programs except AAA encourage seeking and relying on your own higher power. Explore the existence and impact of resident spiritual sub-self who may as a quiet mentor and liaison to your higher power and other entities like guardian angels and your higher self and your spirit guides. Every personality is unique, so view these trust disorders recovery option as a suggestions, not absolutes. Adapt them to fit your inner family history and situation. For options on regaining lost trust, see this. Recap. This article is a part of a series on identifying and reducing up to 6 psychological wounds from a low nurturing traumatic childhood. One wound can be called trust disorder, compulsive trusting too much or too little. This article provided basic perspective about trust, distrust, and betrayal, common symptoms of distrust disorders, and suggestions for reducing them, part work in a family therapy. Lesson 1. In this non-profit website and its related guidebook, Who's Really Running Your Life, explain how to do this. Pause, breathe, and reflect. Why did you read this article? Why did you get what you needed? If so, what do you need now? If not, what do you need? Who's answering these questions? Your true self or someone else? So, thank you very much for listening to me. Comment, like, subscribe, hit the bell button, leave your comment below, and for donations or requests, there is the email on the description box. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye.